So hi folks, it's Andrew Rowland. I'm the designer of Napoleon's Imperium. I've been away for about 12 months. My apologies for making YouTubes. I was diagnosed with leukemia in 2023, July 2023, and I went through a fairly harrowing time for the last 10 months, resulting in a complete bone marrow transplant. But I'm really pleased to say I'm well on the way to recovery, and so much so I'm in a phased return to work. So finally I get back to do some of the things I love, and one of them is illustrating Napoleon's Imperium and telling you a little bit more about that, which I want to do today. And I want to basically give you an overview, and then I want to give you also an overview of the rules and some updates. Now, you can catch a lot of this information on Board Game Geek, so BGG online, and type in Napoleon's Imperium, and you'll get a lot of updates. There's a lot of new files there. There's some new game alliances, such as the War of the Second Coalition to trial. It's in a draft copy. There's the new retreat rule. There's the free play rule, and lots of updated charts. So I really encourage you to move on to them. Before I go into the rules, I want to say a little bit about Napoleon's Imperium. One of the things that I went through in my last 10 months of harrowing experience of going through the whole cancer scenario is you find what is actually precious to you, what is valuable, what is really important in life. And of course, the main things that come out of that is you find that your family is really important to you. The way you interact with other people. For me, kindness is a real big factor, because it's the legacy that you leave rather than what you're gathering now, because these things are temporary, but the legacy that you leave behind is something that's very precious. So my family are very, very precious. But one big part of my life, and it's been a part of my life since the early 1990s, is Napoleon's Imperium. It didn't develop how your normal games would develop. So in America, there's a huge gaming industry. It's much less so in Australia. Of traditional wargaming that is fairly complex, particularly the field that I'm in. It's a fairly complex field where they would take a campaign or a war and they would disseminate that down to all the historical factors and make a really detailed game. My game didn't develop that way. And it's very important to recognize and understand how Napoleon's Imperium did develop, because then you can understand how the gameplay is and what it actually means to play this game. So you'll see it all out in this beautiful array. It's a nice bright game. It's on the adapter table, which is a table that I kickstarted some time ago. It took several years for it actually to come to fruition. It's only just come through and arrived in Australia. So I've set it up in all its regalia here on the table here, so something nice for you to see. And I can actually change the colors here according to the nations of play. But I wanted to say this about Napoleon's Imperium. How it originally developed. The seeds of Napoleon's Imperium was in a youth centre, and I was a youth worker. I've always been in community services. So for the last 3.5 decades, I've been working with people, and it started with youth services and working with disadvantaged young people, homeless young people, etc. And so I started to develop a game that was a bit of a team playing game that all young people could understand and play easy. That developed into a corporate training game of building teamwork together. And so I used to travel around with this huge table. Well, many of you see, and you can look at other YouTube videos, and you'll see the huge 2.5 meter round Tasmania games table with all its figures, regalia, much bigger than Napoleon's Imperium. It was the seed to Napoleon's Imperium. So you can see that. Have a look at that. I really encourage you to have a look at what that was like. But that was a corporate training game. And what would happen is I'd travel around the countryside here in Australia, going to corporate business and all sorts of businesses. And I'd have about an hour to explain the rules to all of these customers that I had. And that would be male and female, people that would have no regard for history or no understanding of Napoleonic history. So they weren't necessarily that interested in the details of history and everything being historical accurate and everything. What they wanted is something fast and quick to deliver team building skills. And that's where Napoleon's Imperium was adapted from. Now, understand the seeds of this. You could look at this game, and anyone who's played it, they could find the seeds in sort of Risk and Axis and Allies. And they're all the things I used to play as a teenager, so certainly there's some seeds of that within this game. But it was more complex than that. It has a lot more complexity, but it's still made to be simple and easy and general. Now, understand that word general. So, in Napoleon's Imperium, we're covering the years from 1798, which is when Napoleon was a general, he's off in Egypt and everything, to 1815. So it's not a lot of years. It's about 18 years of play. Well, it is a lot of years in Napoleonic terms. It's about 18 years of play. Now, in that time, in 18 years, Europe changed dramatically. Alliances changed, spheres of influence changed, treaties changed, everything. You cannot design a game that covers 18 years during the Napoleonic period and have any set borders or any set alliances. There were 7 coalitions in the Napoleonic Wars. That's 7 different teams. And then there was off-breaks of teams, and then there was treaties that affected everything. How are you supposed to cover that in one game that encompasses all? I didn't even try. Okay, it's not meant to be. This is meant to be a fast, fun-moving game that you can just have fun with. So understand that. Just have fun with the game. It's a bit of a dice chucker here. You chuck a lot of dices here. I do not mind that label whatsoever because it's fun. It's got some left field things. It's got these battle cards that throw the cat amongst the pigeons. You turn them over. They're not going to be perfectly aligned to the year that you're playing. They're random events, but they did happen during the Napoleonic Wars. So it does have the seeds of history within, but they come out random and they throw the cat amongst the pigeons. Historically, I've tried to weight the alliances to have the strengths and the weaknesses of that particular nation. So I've tried to insert the history into the game, and also through the battle cards, and there's 120 of them, so 120 scenarios of history that I've researched down to fishing habits up in Norway, down to the little blizzards and snowstorms down in Syria and things like that, to insert those weather patterns to all sorts of events, even to England sending a colony of ships off to put down some rebellion in one place, or over in the Americas, or in Australia, or things like that. All these inserted into it. Some fun facts, if you like, inserted into the Napoleon's Imperium that you can enjoy and random. So don't get wrapped up on what time they take place. If you want to do that, look at the on Board Game Geek, War of the Second Coalition, where a lot of those cards are eliminated and their time factored in. They're more historical. So I plan to do more of that in the future. Wars of the Second Coalition, Third Coalition, Fourth Coalition, as I get time and no thing's interrupted. Unfortunately, yes, I was interrupted for 12 months, but now I'm back and I can set some time for that. So don't get wrapped up in the history, all in the alliance that comes out. When Napoleon's Imperium came out, the best way for such a large-scale game is to have a north to south scenario. Now, there is the ones that are precious about that, say, why is Austria aligned with France and blah, blah, blah. It does not really matter. At some stage, France had influence by treaties over Austria. They sent Austrian armies, along with Prussian armies and everything, to the Russian front in the Russian campaign. There was different alliances. Don't get wrapped up. It is just the based alliance, and it works best for a fun game, north versus south. If you don't want to get yourself wrapped up in all of that, you're going to enjoy the game. If you're going to approach this game as something that's supposed to be historically accurate in every sense over the full 18 years, well, you're going to tie yourself in knots, and you may as well not even start, really. There's the forward in the rule book. And I encourage anyone who purchases this game or plays the game to spend just 15 minutes, 5 minutes, all it will take to read the forward, and then you will understand the approach of the game, and you won't get yourself in tangles or knots and wrapped up and trying to have false expectation. This is a fun game that I played with my teenage sons for years and years until they became adults, until they became architects and doctors, and they still play it decades later, and they still play this game because it was a fun and easy game for them to pick up. Great introduction game if you want to bring some young players and fresh players that will get the taste for the Napoleonic period or history per se, and then take that up, and then they can start into some of these more complex, wonderful games from wonderful designers that are out there. I am not pitching at that same point. This is an introduction to the Napoleonic period, and believe me, I am passionate about this game. Why am I passionate about this game? Because the whole period of Napoleonic Wars was so diverse. It changed so much. It changed the face and the map and the landscape of Europe. And it affects us to this day, where Code Napoleon and everything is still in place in France. So many factors. It's taken me to foreign battlefields. I've walked upon the Victory in Portsmouth in England. I've walked the battlefields of Waterloo in Belgium. I've walked the streets of Paris. I've walked the streets of Rome. I've walked the streets of Istanbul. I have walked all over Europe because of this game. So why am I passionate about it? It's taken 30 years of my life, and I am a one-game designer. So that is, I'm not off. At one stage I did try to create a Civil War game. Based on the same principle. Anyone's welcome to take this sort of design and take it forward that way. But I just love this game so much, and so I rate the game fairly high. I've read on Board Game Geek, and I often read this about other games and things like that. People, they look at designers, and if a designer rates their own game high, they tend to rate the game low. And I do not understand that, because I believe solemnly and sincerely that any designer who is worth their salt will rate their design high. Well, otherwise, why even start? Why even go into it if you don't rate what you do and your design high? You should. It should be something of value and precious to you that you can say, I really believe in this game. And I do. I believe in Napoleon's Imperium. I believe the fun hours, and I've had thousands of hours in this game. Thousands of hours. I've lost more games here than I have won. And I've enjoyed the losses much more than I have the victories, because I've got so much laughter out of that. So much friendships, so many banter. I love the banter with the players. This is designed as a big game, up to 8 players. Any factor from 2 to 8 players can play. I think the best game is on 2-on-2, 4 players. But up to 8 players can, and boy, it's a lot of fun. I encourage you, take the mickey out of each other and just enjoy the game. And I have seen it in a corporate training sense where they really have gone with this, and they've just had a really enjoyable time. It's a team-based game. It's really important, Napoleon's Imperium, that you play as a team. If you play as individuals, for a team of individuals versus a team that is playing as one, using their strengths and weakness to complement each other, that team, the team as one using strengths and weakness to complement each other, is going to win. I tell you this, in one of the corporate training episodes that we did with the predecessor to this, and that was called Team Napoleon, the predecessor to this, was a team of professional women, 4 professional women versus 4 professional men. Now the men, some of them had exposure to war games and things like that because, face it, us guys, we really love those things. And they thought, well, they've got this down pat. They can play this game. They've played war games. They'll just play as individuals. And the team of women who had never seen anything like this, never played anything like this, but still put themselves to the task, they played together and they teamed together and they worked together. Well, they wiped the board clean of the men in the game. It was a laugh to watch, and it was one of the highest scoring games that I have seen. The women just annihilated the men because the men played as individuals, the women played as a team. So the best thing I can encourage you to do, play as a team, back up your alliances. But really, this is a wonderful game. There is much more to it than you understand. Play the different powers, start to understand the complexity and some of the beauty of the rules, and you will get a buzz out of this game. It is much more than, well, we call it snakes and ladders. You got snakes and chutes over there in America or something like that. It is nothing like that. It might seem simple. It's made to be that way, but there are so many factors and strategic factors and complexity in this room. I've had a team that has contributed to the development of this game in Australia for around a decade, and they have poured so much into it. It's very much a collaborative effort. I encourage you to read the credits on the games rule because those people are important and instrumental. So are you, and anyone who contributes on Board Game Geek. Please leave your comments in the forums. Please leave your ideas, your feedback, because I really take that on board, and the game will develop because of you and your feedback. And I'm a person that gives acknowledgement. Okay, so there are so many people that I can thank in the development of this game over the decades, and I want you to be one of those contributors. I've had some wonderful contributors since Compass Games have privileged me and honoured me by publishing this game. And you know, Bill Thomas is just a wonderful person. Since they have done that, it has opened my life to all of these other wonderful people in America, in Europe, all over the world, that I have just made such wonderful friendships with and have gained, and the game has evolved and will continue to evolve because of that. So thank you. Lastly, before I close this segment and we move on to rules, I want to thank Compass Games and the Australian design group, Harry Rowland, who first kind of discovered me and put it under the eyes of Bill Thomas of Compass Games. You guys have made a dream come true. When I had my dark and deep experience of leukemia in the hospital bed, there was one thing that I took with me to the hospital. It wasn't a book, it was my copy of Napoleon's Imperium. And because it was something that was so precious to me, so deep within my heart, I just wanted to look at it, just wanted to see it. So precious to me. So don't be kind to me when I rate my game high, because I believe in it. And I believe in something that I have put all my life into for 30 years. It will develop. I really welcome your feedback. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope you enjoy the game for which the spirit that it was made for, fun and enjoyment and banter. All the best.